May 2nd, 2011. 0 Dark 30. Abbottabad, Pakistan. 24 operators drop from Black Hawks onto a compound they have never physically entered. They move through 3 floors of near-total darkness. They locate their target within minutes. They execute. They are back in the helicopters and climbing away from Pakistan inside 40 minutes. 0 operators killed. That mission didn't succeed because of luck or because of boldness. It succeeded because Naval Special Warfare Development Group, DEVGRU, formerly SEAL Team 6, is the product of a decade-long selection architecture designed to produce a different kind of operator, not just better trained, built differently, with a different institutional philosophy, and a different level of resource behind every single man on that target. On the other side of this question sits FSB Alpha Group, Russia's Tier 1 counter-terrorism unit, founded in 1974 under Yuri Andropov as a KGB Special Operations Directorate. Battle-hardened across 4 decades, a unit with a record that includes some of the most violent and complex hostage rescue operations in the modern era. Genuine, capable, formidable. Formidable is not the same as equivalent. Here is the honest breakdown. Getting into DEVGRU takes a minimum of 8 to 12 years from military enlistment. That number is not a bureaucratic accident. It reflects a deliberate institutional philosophy. By the time a man earns a DEVGRU assignment, he should have already proven himself in every possible environment before final selection even begins. The first filter is BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition. SEAL Training, 6 months. Hell Week is the centerpiece, 5.5 consecutive days on fewer than 4 total hours of sleep. Cold water immersion in the Pacific. Heavy rucksacks through soft sand at night. The instructors aren't trying to physically destroy candidates. They're trying to identify who rings the bell under sustained, deliberate misery. Between 75 and 80% of candidates quit voluntarily. They walk away. The ones who don't earn the right to keep going. SEAL qualification training adds 12 to 15 months of advanced individual skills. Combat diving. High-altitude parachute operations. Combat medicine that allows an operator to manage trauma in a firefight. Close quarters battle refined over years of real-world operational feedback. Complete all of it, pass the final assessment, and you are a Navy SEAL. From first enlistment, roughly 2 years. Then comes the requirement that almost nobody discusses. Before a SEAL can apply for DEVGRU, he must complete a minimum of 2 years of operational service in a regular SEAL team. Real deployments, real hostile fire, real kinetic operations where his decisions have immediate and irreversible consequences. Only after those 2 years, with a command recommendation and demonstrated competence under fire, can he even be considered for Green Team. Green Team selection runs 6 to 8 months of continuous evaluation, marksmanship under stress, room clearing with live ammunition, long-range navigation in austere terrain, scenario assessments designed to surface the men who make sound decisions when everything is burning. Approximately half of already elite SEALs are screened out. Men who survived BUDS, deployed to combat, earned a command recommendation. Half of them still don't pass. 8 to 12 years, 400 days of formal training, 2 years of operational combat, 6 to 8 months of final selection. That is what produces a DEVGRU operator. Alpha Group's pipeline runs 3 to 4 years from military or law enforcement entry. Candidates come from Russian airborne forces and GRU Spetsnaz units, then go through Alpha's own 2-year training cycle focused on close quarters battle, breaching, and domestic counterterrorism. The selection is serious. The training is demanding. But the difference is fundamental. Alpha selects people into their first major combat assignment. DEVGRU selects people who have already survived one. That distinction shapes everything that comes after. Both units carry elite weapons. At Tier 1 counterterrorism level, high-quality suppressed rifles and sidearms are table stakes. Every unit operating at this tier has them. That's not where the gap lives. The gap that decides outcomes in a direct confrontation is what's strapped to their faces when the sun goes down. Every DEVGRU assault operator deploys with GPNVG-18 quad-tube panoramic night vision goggles. 4 separate objective lenses, each with its own image intensifier tube, producing a continuous 120-degree field of view. In complete darkness, without moving his head, the operator sees the entire room. No blind corners, no peripheral dead zones. The full threat environment, all of it, simultaneously. Each unit costs over $40,000. At DEVGRU, it's standard issue for every operator on every assault. Alpha Group's operators carry Generation 2 binocular night vision. 2 lenses. Approximately 40 degrees of field of view. In the same dark room, the Alpha operator sees a cone of green light straight ahead. Anything in the periphery doesn't exist until he physically turns to find it. Put both units in the same building simultaneously. DEVGRU sees the armed guard on the left, the hostage in the corner, the secondary threat by the door, all in the same moment, without moving. The Alpha operator is scanning sequentially, discovering threats one cone at a time. In a room with multiple armed men and civilians, the difference between seeing the whole space at once and making sequential discoveries is measured in seconds. In a hostage rescue, seconds cost lives. This single equipment difference illustrates the broader pattern. The resource gap between these two units isn't a gap in motivation or raw skill. It's a gap in what sustained institutional investment looks like over decades when counterterrorism is your primary national security priority. Consider what the Abbottabad raid looked like from inside that compound. Every operator moving through those floors could see every corner simultaneously, in complete darkness, before stepping into it. No one was surprised by a threat they hadn't already identified before entering a room. The quad-tube goggles turned a dangerous multi-floor clearance in a foreign country at night into a series of controlled, informed decisions. That's not special operations magic. That's equipment advantage compounding across every room, every floor, every second of a 40-minute assault. When DEVGRU deploys on a target, the full American intelligence apparatus deploys with them. CIA Special Activities Center providing human intelligence from inside the target network. NSA signals intercepts tracking communications in real time. Satellite imagery updated continuously. Dedicated overhead, ISR during the assault itself. A watch floor tracking every operator's position simultaneously. Before Neptune Spear, DEVGRU operators spent months rehearsing on a full-scale replica of the Abbottabad compound. They knew which floor their target occupied. They knew the guard rotations, the room layout, the expected reaction time of the Pakistani military. They went into that compound knowing it better than the people living inside it. Alpha Group has real intelligence capability inside Russia. FSB signals and human intelligence networks within Russian territory are genuinely effective. The domestic security architecture is mature and well-resourced. But globally, that reach doesn't extend. A raid outside Russian borders happens with older data, less real-time overhead support, and less precision in the targeting picture. Not because Alpha's intelligence teams are incompetent, because the FSB was built for domestic security, not global power projection. Head-to-head on the same international target, DEVGRU goes in with current, complete information. Alpha goes in with good information. At the level of decision-making that determines whether a hostage lives or dies, that difference is the margin between precision and improvisation. And at this level, improvisation costs lives. The Nord-Ost theater siege shows what the absence of that architecture looks like. Russian planners went in without a complete understanding of how Kolokol 1 would disperse through the ventilation system, or how much of it would reach each section of the building. They didn't have medical teams pre-positioned for the anticipated patient load. DEVGRU doesn't enter a building under those conditions, not because their commanders are more cautious, but because the intelligence and operational planning architecture above them won't permit an assault until the picture is current. That process is what separates 133 hostages dying from the rescue operation itself from 0 friendly casualties on Neptune Spear. Neptune Spear is the standard. 24 operators, 40 minutes, 1 target neutralized, 0 friendly casualties. But Alpha Group's operational record deserves honest examination because it reveals something more complicated than a straightforward failure of capability. October 2002, Moscow. 40 Chechen militants seize a theater and take approximately 850 civilians hostage. Negotiations fail over 3 days. The FSB makes a decision above Alpha's level, pump Kolokol 1, an aerosolized opioid incapacitant, through the ventilation system. Alpha assaults immediately after. Every terrorist is neutralized in seconds. The close-quarters battle is rapid and precise. But 133 hostages die from the gas itself. Medical infrastructure to treat mass opioid exposure isn't pre-positioned. Alpha's tactical entry was not the failure. The decision to use Kolokol 1 without medical response capability was made above them. Alpha executed exactly what they were tasked with. The problem was the task. September 2004. Beslan, a school in the Caucasus. More than 1,100 people taken hostage, around 770 of them children. On the third day, the hostage takers detonate their own explosives. 334 people die, including 186 children. Alpha's operators take serious casualties fighting to contain a situation that had already collapsed before they entered. Again, not a failure of Alpha's tactical execution, a failure in the architecture above them. The pattern across both operations is the same. Alpha Group is an elite unit that has been repeatedly inserted into situations where the operational planning above them had already failed. They went in anyway. They fought hard. That deserves recognition. But it also reveals why the operational comparison ultimately favors DEVGRU, not because American operators are braver, but because the intelligence preparation, the pre-assault planning depth, and the decision-making above DEVGRU have consistently prevented those scenarios from developing in the first place. DEVGRU doesn't assault a building until they know what's inside it. That's not a product of superior operator skill alone. It's a product of how the entire institutional architecture around them is built. Alpha, at their best, can move with extraordinary violence and precision. The 1979 Storm 333 raid on Tajbeg Palace, carried out against approximately 2,000 Afghan defenders in broad daylight, proved that an Alpha-led force can execute large, complex, multi-entry assaults against overwhelming opposition and succeed. That operation was audacious and lethal. It's proof that Alpha Group is not a second-tier force. They are dangerous. The question is simply, what level of resource and operational architecture sits behind them when they go? Consider also what 23 years of continuous operations produces institutionally. After every DEVGRU mission, successful or not, there is a deliberate after-action review. Tactics are updated against real outcomes. Equipment is modified based on what actually failed under fire. The institutional knowledge of what works and what kills people is continuously refined. That process has been running since 2001. Alpha's last sustained operational commitment before the Ukraine war was the Second Chechen conflict, which wound down around 2009. Over a decade of institutional knowledge without combat to test it against. You cannot simulate what sustained operational tempo teaches. You earn it, or you don't have it. DEVGRU wins. The gap isn't narrow. The night vision advantage alone changes the entire mathematics of a darkroom entry. The intelligence architecture advantage changes what the unit knows before the first boot hits the ground. The pipeline advantage means every DEVGRU operator has been tested in sustained combat before selection even begins. And 23 years of continuous global counter-terrorism operations mean the unit has refined its tactics and decision-making against real-world outcomes at a pace that no unit at lower operational tempo can match. Alpha Group is elite, battle-hardened, genuinely dangerous. Their record, understood honestly, shows a unit capable of extraordinary execution under impossible pressure, and a unit that has been failed by its institutional support architecture more than once. That failure isn't Alpha's, but in the head-to-head comparison that matters, same target, same night, same mission. DEVGRU brings technological, intelligence, and experiential advantages that training and courage alone cannot bridge. The operators who flew into Abbottabad on a Tuesday night and were home by the weekend are the proof of that.